Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome back to Igniting Young Minds, Crafting Creative Thinkers, a course for teachers learning how to develop critical thinking skills in the primary classroom. Today, we are moving on to reflection. How reflection is a key skill in the framework. We have started with the foundation of open-mindedness and self-regulation. Building on those, we move to observation, analysis, the logical reasoning skills. We talked about decision making and problem solving, and now we have moved up to reflection. Now, reflection is part of the framework that needs to be initiated in different sections. At the end of the course, I will be showing you the full framework so that you can understand how all the different skills work together to build critical thinking in our young learners. So thanks so much for being here. And I just want to start with, if you always do what you've always done, you'll always be where you've always been. That's a quote by T.D. Jakes. Reflection is the difference between experience and growth. Everyone has experiences. Not everyone grows from them. So, what is reflection? Reflection is the ability to step back and examine your actions, your thinking, your process, your learning. It's like looking in the mirror. When you want to fix your hair, you look in the mirror and you see how your hair is looking and you fixed any of the pieces that are out of place. It's thinking about what you have done and how you can make it better. You want to look for strengths. You want to see where you are blossoming, where you're blooming, where are you growing, what are your strengths. And then you want to look at your flaws. What are the things that you can improve? How can you do it better next time? Reflection is intellectual honesty. We need to be real with ourselves, not criticize ourselves, not berate ourselves or have some kind of abusive relationship with ourselves. No, it's about looking at what is done and having a self-awareness on what you need to improve so that you can be better. Reflection allows us to not repeat mistakes. It helps us to move out of stagnation towards growth and more experience. It takes us away from blaming circumstances and taking responsibility for our own growth and learning. With reflection, we redirect, we refine, and we grow intentionally. Reflection is the first step in self-improvement. So reflection and confidence go together very nicely. You can use many different techniques to help your students grow in their confidence. When your students are able to reflect, they can see their progress, they can see their improvement. And so when you're showing them, you started here and now we're here. And now we want to go here. So through reflection, you're showing them the positive. Look at the amazing work that you've done. And then you are moving them up the scale to a higher level, which means, okay, so in order to get to there, we need to improve this, this, and this. So it builds their confidence. It's not about pointing out what you can't do, it's a pointing out what you haven't done yet. That's reflection. Confidence doesn't come from empty encouragement, it comes from evidence. Reflection allows the students to see their own progress, and the progress builds their belief in themselves. It is important to have honesty and calmness without judgment. You want to have a non judgmental attitude in the classroom for yourself and for your students. You need to model this kind of attitude so that your students can really take it on and practice it in their own lives. They need to see that weaknesses are opportunities to grow and strengths are opportunities to shine. If students reflect with shame, they shut down. If they reflect with curiosity, they grow. So I want to talk a little bit about learning styles. There's an acronym, VARC, that talks about visual, auditory, reading and writing, and kinesthetic. So reflection helps students to think about how they learn best. So you can explain to your students about the different learning styles so that when they're doing their reflection, they can think like, oh, when I see pictures of things or if I can visualize it in my mind, then I learn it better. Or somebody might be like, oh, if I can just listen to it, that's when I learn better. So it's important for the students to know the different learning styles and then be able to reflect and find themselves. Different activities call for different learning styles. It's not that each child has one fixed learning style, but they use multiple learning styles for different activities that they are faced with. So basically, kinesthetic learning is very good for all students. But in all lessons, it's not always possible to have the manipulatives or the environment that supports that kind of learning. So we need to figure out ways that best meet the needs of the kids. And so reflection is a very good way to get the students' input on what kinds of activities they like and can engage in the classroom. Reflection helps them adapt to different situations. So if they know there are these different kinds of learning styles, and then one learning style might not be their favorite, but as they practice it, they will also grow in it. So if there's an activity where one learning style is necessary to learn, like listening, if you have a listening activity, then for those who are not it's not their favorite, it's not their favored one, then this is a time for them to practice and grow. And you can let them know that there's no failure, only feedback. So some ways that you can build reflection in the classroom is by journaling. Journaling is something that they can do at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day, or at the end of the week. They can be writing down what they learned, or they could just be writing their daily activities. They could be writing out their homework and then writing about how they feel their homework was after they finished it. Was it difficult, or did they need some more material? Just some reflection on how the day went and where the difficulties were and where their strengths and where they were able to shine, even where they were able to help somebody else or when somebody else helped them. Just getting them to reflect on all the activities and place themselves in the learning and in the process of their own education. So, through group discussions, you can have reflection talks, like just talking about the day or talking about the activity, talking about how we're going to move through a unit together to be able to make sure that everybody's learning. You could use different kinds of checklists or weekly reports. You could be giving them two strengths and one improvement, or you could use peer feedback where they have to take a look at somebody else's writing, somebody else's drawing, and they have to say two things that are good about it and one thing that they could have done better. Reflection is a really key part of the learning process. And we need to have questions being asked of the kids to be able to talk about what they did. And if you ask, how did you do? They can answer, oh, good or bad or terrible or great or fantastic, but it doesn't give specific enough information. You need to ask your questions in such a way that the students are really able to reflect and think about the details of what they're doing. So you can ask, what was really good about your project or your homework or the presentation that you did? What could you improve? How will you improve it next time? What will you do differently next time that will help you to make this area better? So, really thinking about the questions that you're asking the students so that they have the consciousness of really learning from what they're doing so that they can be better and grow and learn. So, as educators, we also need to have reflection time. Every week, when I present one of these different skills, at the end, I ask you, please reflect on these particular questions. How does this skill show up in your classroom? And that's what we need to be doing as teachers all the time. And so, as teachers, we need to set a time aside for reflection, because we need to be modeling it to the students. And we need to speak openly about improvements that we're making in our classroom activities and how we're teaching the students. And we need to reflect on lessons. We think we planned this great lesson, and then somehow it flops. We were so excited and thought this is really going to get the kids engaged, and then somehow they just didn't pick up what you were putting down. And so you reflect and you think, what was it? Was it something about me? Was it something about the weather? Was it the kid's mood? There's so many different reasons that it could be. And so you could go through the reasons and really think about how and why and when you're doing certain lessons so that the kids can really get the most out of it. So, just to reiterate, is that students really imitate more than they obey. I mean, if you have a really strict classroom and the kids are afraid of disobeying or any kind of disruptive behavior, then you might get the behavior. But if you want real growth, if you want real learning, the kids who are imitating you and putting into practice the things that you are showing them and teaching them and guiding them through and engaging them with, that's where you're going to see the learning and the growth. So, reflective thinking turns experience into insight. That's John C. Maxwell. Reflection is not about being perfect. It is about being intentional. If we teach our students to pause, think, adjust, and try again, we are not just teaching academics, we are teaching lifelong growth. Thank you so much for joining Igniting Young Minds, Crafting Creative Thinkers. If you found any value in this program, if you could share it in your groups, share it in with your friends, with any teachers that you know. Subscribe and like my channel, Irakuba Aim High Education Services. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. So have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.